You have questions? We have answers. Welcome to the Therapist Question Box with your host, Miss Lindsay Schiss.
Welcome back to another episode of the Therapist Question Box, where we're not afraid of anything, so ask away. We're here to tackle your tough questions. Today I have with me Kim Mallette, who's an LCSW and a therapist here at Therapy Utah. Kim is trained in packed couples therapy, and she specializes in relationship counseling. Thanks for joining us, Kim.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
So today we're going to talk about marriage. You know, when we go to weddings, we're all there happy to celebrate the union of two people. It honestly can look like a fairy tale. And yet we all know it can be incredibly challenging. You have two people that love each other. So really, what could go wrong?
Right?
Besides a lot of things, right? So we're going to jump right into a couple of listener questions. And Kim, I'd love to hear your expertise and some of your thoughts on these listener questions. So here's our first one. It's a listener who says, I am recently engaged and want to avoid some of the marital pitfalls that I see my parents having. What advice would you give? That's a broad one, but one that I'm sure a lot of young couples are feeling.
Yes. And I just want to point out that the first thing I would say is that she's got such this good heart because she wants her marriage to work so much. And that's such a good place. And it also can be a problem when you're saying, oh, I don't want the pitfalls of my parents, because you could start with an anxious place. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Which may start you already looking out like, oh no, what's wrong? What's wrong? And as hard as that is, it's that vigilance and looking for what's wrong, because you don't want anything to be wrong, that could actually cause the problem.
Interesting.
Right?
So that anxiety, even going into it and trying to manage it, might cause the problem.
Yes.
In and of itself.
So that's what I want to warn her of, is that that vigilance and making sure that everything's okay can actually make your brain look for the faults, look for the negative things. And your brain, that doesn't work to make a good relationship. So how I would tell her to do that is, okay, remember, you're not marrying a person that's the list of the perfect qualities that's going to make your marriage. You're marrying a real person. And I can tell in her heart, she's already chosen somebody good, and she's good. And so it's so important that and this will be a problematic dynamic when problems start to come, right? Because when the problems come up, it'll be like, oh no, maybe there's something wrong with you. Maybe there's something wrong with me. And we want to always be, problems are problems and people are not problems, right? Whoever you marry, they're a good person with flaws, right? Yes. And so if you can really be careful not to make other people feel like, oh no, because the minute I feel like I'm a problem, something's wrong with me, I go to a threat place. Right? This is the threat that starts these dynamics that are the problem that cause the pitfalls. But if we can stay in this thing that problems are problems, and we want to keep that place within ourselves where we have to treat each other special. So I always say it doesn't take special people to make a good relationship. It takes treating each other special. And as soon as you're a problem, I no longer feel special. Right? And so I want to think of problems I call it the third thing. Like, it's not you, it's not me, it's a third thing altogether. It's like a jigsaw puzzle that's on the table, and we can work on whatever problem comes up as figuring out this puzzle. It doesn't have to mean anything about you or about me. So if she gets in this marriage and she really is struggling with, I feel like I'm not enough or he's not enough, get some therapy quick, right? Because that's the problem. It's not being able to switch because of anxiety, that we can be creators. We can be secure with each other. You're you, you're me. And if we really have this confidence, this secure feeling about our relationship, instead of that insecure anxiety, we're going to go, hey, we can create solutions to our problems. So problems aren't a big deal, which is what can happen with people who grow up with parents who do this really well. They automatically start off with that secure footing rather than that anxious footing. Even though our heart, that anxious person probably has even a heart that's cares more about the marriage than somebody with anxiousness. Does that make sense? But I don't want that anxious, that good, feeling to show up in an insecure ways and then start the those dynamics of happening.
I love that idea of the problem is the problem, not the person, because then it feels less personal, right?
Right. And then you can take care of things easily because it isn't a personal attack. The minute I feel attacked, I'm in a threat place. And I'm not even in that place where I can collaborate and cooperate about an issue because I'm too much in we call it our sympathetic nervous system. It's that emotional amygdala part in our brain that's just concerned about getting to safety, about being okay again. And so, yeah. So
that makes a lot of sense. I also think if it's, I don't feel like the problem, but also as this partner saying, you know what, it's not you are the problem or I'm the problem, but we have an issue that we need to figure out. It just, to me, it diffuses everything. So
right. And you just gave a really great skill, which is when you do bring up a problem, you've got to bring up a problem in a way that you don't affect your partner not feeling like they're important or that they're special or that they're loved by you. So you can bring it up like, hey, I've got something to bring up, but I just want you to know I love you. And I know you're just the greatest husband, the greatest wife, and I care so much about you. So I want to bring this up really sensitively because I wouldn't want you to take it any other way that except for this is just a little issue that I want to talk about. And then they're kind of prepared. Oh, they love me. They're already feeling that love that was special. And so they're able to handle whatever you're going to bring up. But if you start in with that problem, they have no idea what's coming towards them.
And so defenses come up and they start to feel like, oh no, I'm going to get into fight mode as opposed to we're on a team together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, are you going to do it wrong? Yes, because we're humans, right? But that's okay because we actually use the same skill to repair. Right? Oh, let me come back and first tell you how special you are, how much you matter to me, so that I can get that nervous system and let me redo. I think I said it in a way that put you in that place where you felt like, you did something wrong or that there's something the matter with you. And let me tell you how I wish I would have said that, or can we do this again? And so if somebody gets upset and it doesn't go well, we don't want to give up our truth, but that original issue is that matters to us. We just have to try again using that same skill of assure your partner that you care about them, that you love about them, that the relationship is going well for you. It's just this issue. So go again at it in the same way with the repair so that it helps.
I love that. It's interesting because as you said that, it makes me think, if a partner knows that my intention is not to lambaste you and to poke holes, and all of a sudden I feel like I'm going to be attacked. But no, my intention is I love you and I want to be close. And this is something that is impeding our connection and our closeness. And so it's not that I don't want you, that our relationship's on the rocks, whatever. That's something actually my motive is to be closer as opposed to, I don't want you anymore. And this is right. So to me, that calms everything down.
Right. And another little tip is that think of sincerity, because you were just talking about like the energy of sincerity. When I come to you, you can take that. Almost anybody can. Yep. But if I'm already defensive about something, that energy is not going to be sincere. And you're going to get in trouble. Mm-hmm. So if you can regulate yourself and get to sincerity, and whatever you need to do to get there, right? Your partner is going to be able to take the energy of sincerity over other things.
Can you tell us when you say regulate yourself? So if I come into a discussion and I'm hot and I'm frustrated, is that a problem?
Big problem.
Okay.
Right. We're already starting in threat. And when you're in threat, remember, you're not in that part of the brain, which is your prefrontal cortex, where you can be a negotiator, right? Where you can cooperate. And it's biology, right? Everybody's the same way. Nobody can do it when they're in that amygdala, that fight, that trauma response place, right? So when you say, what if I'm already coming into it? You already have a problem. Don't be coming into it that way.
Okay, so what do you recommend?
Sit down and self-soothe yourself. Talk to yourself. Tell yourself, I'm loved. I'm important. Our relationship is good. Think about your partner in these really soothing ways that they really do want to be there for you. You just have to be able to explain it to them because they don't live in your brain. They don't live in your body. They don't know until you can express that sincerity. So get to that really good place where you think you can have that energy of sincerity and then come at it with that skill of let them know what's happening, that they're appreciated and loved and everything. So you're in a good spot. And then bring it up as a problem, like a jigsaw on the table, and like a small one. So if they think it's a mountain, that's going to get back to that threat. If you can say, no, this is just kind of a small thing. And let me tell you, when I say that we got to make each other feel special all the time, this isn't something that's ever going to change, because just being human, we can get out of that habit. I have like 5 A's that I read somewhere, and I thought this is how you make your partner, how you make each other, because it's a 2 system, right? Feel special. And that is pay attention to each other. There's your A. Appreciate each other, accept each other, show affection to each other, and allow each other the freedom to be themselves. Right? If I'm working on those 5 things, that energy in our relationship is going to feel like you're special, I'm special, our relationship's special, and we're going to be okay. And then when the problems come up, they won't derail us, because we're already in that caring spot.
Yes. Yeah. It's almost like we're not coming at this from a deficit. We're coming at it when we're already in hopefully a good place.
Exactly.
Right.
But not coming up with the deficit.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the things you said, though, that I think is so important, when you said it's not this mountain. I think when we go to have those conversations, it's not like, okay, now I'm going to just pile everything on. So remember 2 months ago and 3 years ago when you did this, but we're going to stay focused on the issue at hand. To me, that also feels like a safety net for the partner, that I'm not going to be just hammered with stuff from
right. And be aware that it might feel like a mountain to you. But for this person, it might feel like a mountain because, remember, so important for her not to have that relationship her parents have. So when a little things happen, it really might feel like a mountain.
Yeah.
So that's when we have to sit with ourselves and scale back, get in the present, help yourself do that, so that when you bring it to your partner, it no longer feels like that mountain. But it's okay if it feels like a mountain at the beginning, but recognize where that might be coming from.
For sure. And also, what might feel like a mountain to you might be very different to me. Right. And to give your partner space for that. Like, this might be historically difficult for them, but is it okay that like this was hard and felt like a mountain to you and feels like nothing to me, and give space for that?
Yeah.
I think
that's that
really
thing where it's like, allow them to be the free to be themselves. Now, they should still care about it, not because that issue is so important to them, but because the issue is important to you.
Yep.
So they're trying to show you care and understanding because it's important to you, without having to make it like their personal thing too.
I've heard the saying, if it matters to you, it matters to me.
Right.
Right. It really may not matter to me, but because you matter to me as my partner, then this issue matters to me.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you. So I want to go to our next question, because this one's different. This is on the other side where someone's been married for a long time. So let's launch into that one. The question is, I've been married for almost 20 years to a good man. We both work hard to give our kids a good life, and we rarely fight. Things are busy. Days and weeks go by without ever really having a deep conversation with each other. I feel like we're more like roommates than lovers, but we forget how to be lovers. We forgot how to be lovers a long time ago. It seems like a lot of work to change things, and I'm not sure even where to start.
Awesome question. And I want to start off, when you get those medical commercials and they say, okay, beware, I don't want to cause harm, so I need to put this out there. So we're kind of talking about we've lost lovers. I'm going to take it into a sexual frame because that's part of that, right?
Sure.
But that's why I want to have this, we got to be careful of harm. So whatever the information that we're going to talk about on how to be lovers or romantic partners again, I want us to recognize first, if there's been sexual injury, and that could be from when you were growing up, or, maybe there's some sexual injury that's happened in the relationship, whether, whatever that could be, right? This isn't the information. This isn't the advice I'm giving to you.
Can you tell us what sexual injury in a relationship? What
sure. Maybe
examples?
we've had some coercion, right? Okay. And maybe we've had I felt like I had to do something and I didn't want to, or anything. There's just such a thing. And if I say to somebody, if you feel like you've had some sexual injury in your marriage and your body says, I think so, believe your body and go, okay, we actually just have to heal that first. Your little sexual part is like a little child part that's inside of you. So we wouldn't want to try and heap on like behaviors of how to help this, become lovers and that kind of thing before we heal that part. And so I just want to say that would be first, and that would be not what we're going to talk about today.
Can you hurry and tell us how would somebody do that? How do you heal that part?
You go to some therapy,
Mhm.
right?
Individual therapy?
Yes.
Okay.
You would first do that with some individual therapy so that you have to understand the sexual injury yourself before you bring that to your partner, because there's a very good chance that they don't understand it either.
Yep.
And so, yes. And the other thing is you also can't use the sexual relationship as a Band-Aid to other issues, thinking, well, if we just improved this part of our marriage, then the whole marriage would be better. So that's my other thing. The advice that I'm going to give you, it won't fix that either. Does that make sense? And so I just want to put that out there.
Okay.
That we would, again, probably need some couples therapy around the whole relationship, because again, that sexual part of our relationship is really important. Now, what I really like, well, let me start. Okay. So first, there's this little foundation that you need for a good long-term sexual relationship, or, where it feels like we're lovers. And it's not hard, but let's see if you have it, or whoever might have it who's listening. I have to have a relationship of trust, admiration. We have to be friends. Okay. And she gives us clues in her question. I love her question, because she says she gives her husband credit for his goodness and her credit for her own goodness. Like, we're hard workers, we're good parents, we don't fight, so she's not in this one person system where she's at all blaming her partner. So I can tell that that's probably online. So we're good, probably. And the second is we actually have to prioritize the sexual relationship or the lover romantic part of our relationship, because it doesn't happen without intention. And that means we're going to have to put something else aside so that this has a place, right?
So make this a priority,
right?
Sexual part of the relationship.
It's like there's not enough space for everything in our relationship. So we do have to put things aside and make this a priority with intention.
But is it like, okay, so we have to schedule sex? I mean, I've heard that talked about, and I know there's so many different ways of feeling about that.
Maybe you'll have to put something else aside so there's time for us to do this, right?
Okay.
And so you can decide what that looks like within your relationship. It's just, you can watch TV. You can compare yourself to another couple that looks like they have a lover type relationship, and you can think it's automatically done. It's not, right? It isn't going to happen unless there's intention. And that's normal. That isn't, we have to try so hard, so there must be something wrong with us. No.
Isn't that the truth? Anything that's worth it takes effort.
Exactly. And this is worth it.
This is worth it.
This is worth it. And again, I want to start off on the right foot, just like before. We don't want to start off in an insecure, anxious way. So the first thing is we have to normalize, because I think when you're in a long-term relationship, I think that this roommate stuff is pretty normal in almost every long-term relationship, at least a stage apart. And so everybody's going to have to do this. She's not broken. There's nothing wrong, right? So number one, we have to normalize this. And I want to kind of tell a story that's really quick. Is it okay?
Yeah.
So I don't know who, some of our reader or listeners will understand Emily Nagoski. She wrote a really awesome sex book called Come As You Are. And it was like in 2016. She's kind of young. And her book kind of took off like wildfire, probably more than she expected.
Yep.
She's young. And why did it? Because she wrote this book that was for normal people, right? And then, but what happened is she became sort of famous in the therapy world, and she went, traveling, and life became stressful, less time with her spouse, right? And our sexual selves really don't like pressure or judgment, and becoming the expert kind of added that for her own sexual life, right? And then COVID happened, and she got sick in a long-term sort of way. So these long-term things happen, and I think she uses this word, but sorry, Emily, if I'm using the wrong word, but it's like her own sexual relationship became broken, no desire, months without having sex. And I just think that's kind of cool, because even she could have, right?
Yeah.
Have this. And so she did. And then she writes her second book, which just came out this fall, which is called Come Together. And it's just fabulous on how to put this back together. So I'm giving this story because we've got to normalize it. We've got to give ourselves some self-compassion. And so this woman writing the question, I would say, Peter Levine has you ask this question, what happened to me? And I would say, what happened to us? Go through and go, wow, that was really hard when we had this financial issue in our marriage. Wow, that was really hard when we had this kid issue, when this came up, and you can give yourself some compassion when you ask that question, what happened to you?
I love that question because
Right.
instead of, oh my gosh, we're broken, this is terrible. I guess we're relegated to a life of just like living in side by side, ships in the night, whatever. No,
blaming yourselves.
Right.
Right. It's not going to work.
Like life happens.
Right.
Lots of things happen.
You have to get out of shame before we even start, or else it's going to come up and get us. Right.
Good.
And then I would say, now in pack therapy, we talk about a couple bubble. So I have to tell you what a couple bubble is in pack therapy, but it's a funny word. But when we talk about bubble, we say, oh, they live in a bubble. They don't know what's going on. And it's kind of negative. But in pack therapy, it's positive. It's like you two are the only one in the bubble. So who cares what anybody else's relationship looks like? Who cares what anybody else's thinks? Because it's just you two. And in some ways that brings so much peace because it's just you, it's just me. Right. And we can get in trouble if we compare ourselves to other couples. Think about if you have a favorite song. If you have a favorite song and somebody rips that song apart, suddenly your song doesn't feel so great anymore. Sure. Right. And if you're doing the same thing with your relationship and you're comparing it and you're falling short, suddenly your couple bubble doesn't feel so special anymore. Right. And we have to keep that special feeling about the relationship and about each other.
When you say that, the couple bubble, it makes me think too that I think of it as a protection.
As the protection.
Like this is protected.
Safe haven.
Yes.
Is the place that wants to feel like rest to us both.
So how do you do that? How would our listeners do that if they I don't know what a couple bubble is. How do I do it? What does it look like? Like what are some practical ways we can create that couple bubble?
Well, one, and we could even keep this in this realm that we're talking about sexually, and what we talked about before, remember this sexual problem is not about you. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with me. If I feel broken, make the other person feel broken. Our couple bubble does not feel good, right? We're no one special anymore. So keep this sexual problem even as it's on the table. It's the jigsaw puzzle. And let's not even call it a problem, right?
Yeah.
Let's call it an adventure.
I like
right?
that. That might not feel like an adventure, but
fun. So the puzzle is fun, right? Let's really be careful of how we're talking about each other. So I love this word. Think of the word tolerate each other, right? And think of the word of adore each other, right? There's different energy in tolerate and adore.
And so much of that I think is in our heads.
Totally.
It's not even like what we're saying to each other, but it's just the way I think about that person when I'm thinking about this problem or this adventure, as you said. Or the way we think about and the narrative in our head is so impactful.
So impactful. So we need to start trying to shift ourselves over to adore. We're here for each other. I appreciate, go back to those 5 words, right? I appreciate,
What do I do though if I don't feel that way?
Start working on it.
No, because that's real, right?
Really be self-confronting.
Okay.
How much of this is you and that anxiety that gets started in those negative dynamics, right?
Okay.
Can you appreciate that it's okay that your partner has flaws, right? So again, you were just talking about another part, and let me switch it just a little bit in that we're going to be, we have to have a good mind space in both about our relationship, right? Because our brain is our biggest sexual loving instrument that we have, right?
Sure.
And so if we don't have a good meaning frame, we're in trouble.
What do you mean by meaning frame?
Meaning, what do I think about sex? Right? If I think it's so hard, it's too much work, right? Or if I let there's a lot of sexual harm that happens in our world. And if I let that into because remember, this is a couple bubble, all of that doesn't have to be my couple bubble. Sure. Right. I want to, but it is, right. There is some of that. And so, but the work is to get it out and to start doing this by almost blowing your mind with how great sex can be in a long-term relationship, right? It can mean it's just for you, it's just for me, nobody else. That's cool, right? It can mean, I love talking about, Jennifer Finlayson Fife talks about this, eros energy, which is the energy. It's not love. It's a little different, because if I just needed love, I could, and she uses this example, we could all live in our parents' basement and feel loved by our parents.
Yeah.
It's the eros energy that gets you out of your parents' basement and into the world and wanting to grow, right? It's that growth, it's that aliveness. So that eros energy is the aliveness. So if I can start changing my meaning frames that aren't working, that aren't going to help me get what I want, and start changing them and go, oh, yeah. And I think of, like, when I think of eros energy, I think of a 13-year-old little girl in her sexuality, putting her makeup on and wanting to be all cute, right? I think of that 13-year-old boy putting gel in his hair and trying to be cute. And I think of sunsets. I think of outdoors, and even
So maybe we need to find ways to rediscover that eros energy.
exactly. And we
Because
can, and that will help
we need it.
sexual lover energy. And again, it can happen just individually in your own life, and you bring that, or you can do it together. Either one works. It's about, hey, you know, if I do something outside with my partner that's fun, where it's beautiful, that imagine, you can tell that's going to bring that alive energy that I want. So it can be, there's other dimensions to intimacy, which is what we're going for. There is like friends, there is maybe recreational intimacy, there is spiritual intimacy. But if I bring that eros energy to any of them, like, what makes me feel alive spiritually? If spiritually means with my higher purpose, right? And I share that, even if my spouse isn't sharing it with me and I'm just sharing it with them, I'm bringing that energy into that couple bubble, so to speak.
Exactly. I love that. And it really, to me, I hear, like, I have to take some responsibility for this. Like, I have to say, okay, what energy am I bringing to this? What are my thoughts about sex and about intimacy? What are some of the perceptions that maybe I need to change? So really appreciate that. I appreciate the idea of, marriage doesn't just have to be a slog that we're just going through, and every day it's like, oh, here we go, and we've made this commitment, so we got to stick with it. But it can actually be a really beautiful thing.
Good. I got two more quick things.
Okay.
And one of them is, you're going to have to be super careful, just like we were talking about, of how you present this to your partner. In PAC therapy, we say we use persuasion. We use love. Like, I'm like, we're doing that same thing. I'm making you feel special while I'm saying I want more of a lover relationship and less of a roommate relationship, right? If I bring this to you like you're the problem or I'm the problem, we're off. It's not good. So use persuasion, and really be careful of control and judging it. Judging sexuality is going to get you every time. So every time you have little judgment thoughts, because you can't help that. No, we're not going to judge. We're not going to judge this. Just let that go. And then just a really practical advice, okay? Because I find this all the time. I'll have a couple that really wants to build their relationship with intimacy, and they're not spending any time together. And
Turns out that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I say this, I just tell, because all of us, and she said this, we have too much stuff, and every couple is the same way going on. And so when I prioritize the last hour of every day to be couple bubble time with my partner, and that's hard for some couples to want to give up whatever that they do and to go to bed together. Again, I do that every night. It's like brushing your teeth. It makes a world of difference for your dental health. It does for your marriage. If I'm not willing to do that, it's really hard to find that space, because life is so crazy. It's hard to prioritize that. If I don't prioritize that last hour of every day and a date night and maybe some vacations together, right? If I don't prioritize those things amongst the busy life, my busy life will take over.
Exactly. I often tell couples that you're either going to spend time on the front end and trying to make it great and trying to be connected and lovers with each other, or you're going to spend time cleaning it up on the back end and in arguments and frustration. So you might as well spend it at the beginning of and saying, okay, this matters to us, and we're proactively spending time here. So really,
I actually love that because it's true. And it's not like the beginning or the end. It's all through your marriage. Either
Yes.
you're spending it in this way, in this connecting way, in this building, and you're making each other feel special, or you're doing it here. Both couples are doing it.
you're going to do it one way or
They're
the other.
both doing it.
Yep,
Yeah. I love
exactly. Well, thank you so much, Kim. Really appreciate the listeners for tuning in, and we hope you found today's episode helpful. Remember, no marriage is without challenges, but with dedicated effort, couples can build a strong and enduring bond. Until next time, take care and stay connected. If you like this episode, please share it with your friends, rate it and review, and we'll see you next time.